All right then, shall we make a start, Matt?
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah.
And then
Just
people can join
yeah.
in. Yeah, absolutely.
Quick bit of housekeeping before we start. Those that didn't hear earlier, what we'll be doing in this session is using the chat mostly to communicate, although there will be a bit of a group activity later on. So there's an opportunity there for you to use your microphones and webcams if you do wish to later on in the session. But for now, what we're going to do is just talk you through some different slides. So if you could keep those microphones and webcams turned off. If you're not sure where to find the chat, it's in the bottom right-hand corner of your screens. You'll see there's a little purple button there next to some arrows. If you click that, you'll be able to enter the chat and of course use that space to ask questions, make comments during the session. We're more than happy to answer those questions as we go. Also, just to mention, if you have got some headphones, use those if possible, as it will help with the sound quality. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be recording this session. I've just set that going now, so that if you do lose internet connectivity, rest assured you'll get a recorded version of the session, so you won't miss any of the content that we're covering.
Fantastic. Then, so to begin, so I'm Matt. I don't know if I formally introduced myself at any point. So this is me saying hello, Matthew, Matt. So first of all, I want to begin by saying welcome to the Writing Gym. So this is a space that we've created to help support those of you who are doing master's degrees in developing your academic writing. Largely, we envisaged it as being a group for helping support dissertations, research projects, but also anyone who's working on an assignment as well. And really, we're here to support you. So really, today is about introducing you to what the Writing Gym can offer you, and give you a flavour of some of the activities we'll be doing. So to begin with, I just want to talk to you about some of the ways that we can support your writing and go through a couple of ground rules for the Writing Gym. So first of all, we're going to be offering regular classes to support your writing. Now, there's going to be a mix of topics within these. Some of them are going to be focused towards helping support research projects, and I'm going to talk through some of our upcoming sessions in a little bit. And others will be dedicated to just getting you writing, because quite often it's really helpful to be writing in groups. It can spur you on, to have people around you knowing that you've got other people that are doing exactly the same thing as you. We're going to be offering writing resources. We're going to be housing those on the Libguide. Hopefully all of you have had a chance to look through, and we'll be uploading those as we come across useful resources, some that we already know, and you'll be able to access those whenever you want. Something else you're going to get access to is a dedicated discussion board. I won't talk about that too much now because Kirsty's going to talk to you about that in more detail. But it's basically a space where you're going to be able to post work, post questions. We'll check in with that. But as I say, Kirsty will talk a little bit more about that. You've also got 24/7 access to the virtual writing space. The gym kind of belongs to you guys as well. So if you want to dip into this space that we're in now and come and do some writing, you're absolutely welcome to do that. As long as we're not running a session at that, you can use this to be your virtual writing space. If you were interested in setting up a virtual writing retreat or something like that, you can have a chat with us and we can give you some ways that you might go about setting that up. And also we're going to be offering one-to-one personal training sessions where one of us will work with you in a one-to-one environment to help develop your writing, and we'll be releasing more details about how you can access those, get those booked, timetables, and those sorts of things sort of in the coming weeks. The real message I want to give to you guys more than anything is that we are a community of writers. That's something that's going to be really central to this as a group. We're here to support each other, encourage each other, and I think actually at this unprecedented time, which I'm sure we've all heard an awful lot recently, I think it's really, really important that we've got this space where we can support each other, encourage each other's writing, and all develop kind of our academic skills and get those assignments completed and make progress with your research projects. So, a few ground rules. I want to make it clear that communication between members should always be polite and respectful. That's going to be something that's really important to this group. As I just said, it's important that we encourage each other, we spur each other on. This isn't a place to be unnecessarily critical of one another. Everyone who attends the sessions must be prepared to be an active participant. These are not just taught sessions where we're just going to talk at you the whole time. Today's session might feel a bit like we're doing an awful lot of talking, but that's because we're going through these ground rules. This is an induction. Usually you're going to be very active. Sessions are going to involve writing. And I think that's one of the great things. When you join one of our sessions, by the end of it, you should feel that you've made progress on your assignment or your research project. You will have actual words. You will have progressed further, which can be a great feeling. Got to be prepared to give and receive feedback. Obviously, like I've already said, this is going to be in a polite, encouraging, respectful way. But that's a really important thing. Both being able to give feedback to others and receive it. Take that on board and think about how you can incorporate that into your writing. So kind of like I've just said, this feedback should be positive, constructive. I do want to stress, you don't have to attend every session that we offer. You can pick the sessions that work for you. If you, for example, are working on assignments, some of our immediately upcoming sessions about research projects, methodology might not seem that relevant to you. You're under no pressure to attend those sessions. You can dip in and use the gym as best suits you. And on that point, we're going to be setting writing tasks at the end of each session. However, I really want to stress these are not homework. You don't need to be sending us emails saying, I'm sorry, I haven't done the writing task. We understand that you're busy, and they are only optional. The content that we cover in sessions and activities that we do in the sessions won't mean that you need to have completed the writing task, but they're another way that you can seek to develop your academic writing. And when you complete those writing tasks, that's part of where we'll use the discussion board. You'll be able to upload your responses, we'll respond to them. But like I say, those are always optional. And if we set multiple writing tasks in a week, you can complete one, all of them, none of them. Some weeks you can do them. If you don't think it's useful for you that week, you don't need to feel that you have to complete that. So that's just something that I kind of want to make really clear. So I think now I'm going to pass to Kirsty, who's going to give you a little tour of the Libguide, which is sort of our home base for the gym.
All right. So this involves me sharing one of my Chrome windows, so bear with me a second while I sync this up. What I want to show you really are the two main online spaces that we're going to be using to help support you during your dissertation or indeed writing your assignment. Now we've got our Writing Gym homepage and we've got the Writing Gym discussion board. So the one I'll show you first is our kind of Writing Gym homepage. So they should sync up. Here we go. So you may have seen this already. This is kind of the home of all of the content and the sessions that we'll be posting over the summer as part of this program of workshops and of writing tasks. So as you hit the home page, see you get a little bit of an introduction to the gym. And when you scroll down, a kind of quick overview of the different sessions that we're planning to run. And you can see a quick summary of how long those sessions take, as well as the content that those sessions involve. So, of course, today we're sitting the induction. We've got 90 minutes today for an introduction really to the gym, how we hope this program runs over the session and how you can get the most out of the different workshops and webinars that we'll be running. You'll also see some of our other sessions that are upcoming, including Get to Know Your Research Project, Let's Get Critical, as well as some of the other sessions. Now, I won't talk too much about them in detail, as I know Matt's going to talk through what each of those involves, but if you're not sure on the content of a particular session that you see in our timetable, if you scroll down on this homepage, you'll see there is some information there on what those sessions involve. Moving back up, you'll see as well, we've got our timetable on here, and this will be updated fairly regularly. So it takes about 24 hours from the point at which we post a session for it to become available on our website. So we are going to keep ahead of the curve and make sure that you've got a lot of these sessions posted there that you might want to join at any point. Now, there's no booking limit at the moment on these sessions. So if you see a title and a time and date that suits you, then of course follow these links, and that'll be able to book a place for you on that session. However, we appreciate that at the moment people's timetables are a little bit all over the place. People are very flexible, so we will be recording a lot of these sessions and also making the resources available online. So if you do like the look of one of these sessions but you're not able to attend at that time, don't worry, that doesn't mean that you won't be able to access that content or view the resources and get a lot out of that session. So if you do want to book onto some of our sessions, that's where you can do this. as you view the timetable. Now, all of these sessions will also be available through UniHub. So if you're more familiar with using UniHub to book sessions, then you can, of course, search in there for Writing Gym under the Events tab, and you'll be able to see all of our upcoming sessions as well. A couple of other things I wanted to mention. There's a space on here that at the moment is blank. We've not populated this yet, but this is going to be the home of our writing resources. So Matt and I will be populating this with any handouts or templates, any writing guides that we think are particularly helpful for your level 7 writing, and we'll keep that up to date again and be adding different handouts and resources as we go through the summer. To mention as well, if you yourselves come across any useful resources, if you come across a useful website that you would like to share with this community of writers, then of course you're always welcome to drop us an email and we can upload those resources and make them available to everyone through the Writing Resources tab. Similar to the resources, we've also got a section for kind of what we're calling news and inspiration, and this is where we'll be posting any quick updates. We'll be using this really like a blog. So any articles we come across, any other webinars being run at different universities, any websites that we think are going to be really helpful to you, we'll be sharing those here as well. One thing that I've popped in there already is an article that was in The Guardian, I think about 2 weeks ago now, and it was all about using Zoom for writing retreats. Now, we're going to have a little bit of a go at this later on, but it's a really interesting article about how people at this time have been finding it helpful to actually set up their webcams and join a webinar and then not say anything. They just sit there and they work and they kind of write some of their dissertation, but there's that sense of community. You've got those people there on the webcam kind of all working away, keeping busy. And some people have been finding that really helpful to motivate them with their writing. So we've popped that there in the blog just to share with you. And again, if you have things you'd like to share, you're more than welcome to send those along, and we can use that blog to help share them with everyone else. The other thing you'll notice from the Writing Gym homepage as well is this tab on the left-hand side here called Head to the Gym. Now, as Matt mentioned earlier, you are, of course, welcome to use this space, this Collaborate space, to run your own writing retreats, or maybe to catch up with other people that you've met in these workshops, to use as a social space. And that is absolutely fine. We'd actually really encourage you guys to use this for those writing retreats in your own time, if that's a helpful motivator for you in your writing and to help keep you on track. The only thing to double check with us is whether or not we're teaching in here at that time. But if not, then feel free to click that button, head to the gym, and you can use this quiet writing space to run those writing retreats, and maybe even as a social space with others as well. So that's the home of the Writing Gym and the different sort of sections that form part of that. The other main online space that we'll be using throughout the summer as part of this program is also our discussion boards. Now, this involves me again to stop sharing. You might want to see our faces appear. I'll just share the discussion board with you, as this will function a little bit differently. So again, let's just give it a moment or two to load. There's Matt's face in the middle of the screen. Here we go. So this is the home of our discussion boards, and as it sounds, like this is really a space to use to have discussions, to get feedback on your writing, to ask any questions. We really want to stress that this program and this whole Writing Gym idea, it is really dedicated to master's students. We wanted this to be a space for you guys to make progress on your writing, to ask questions about those dissertations, and really make it your own. And the discussion board is where we'll be posting some of our writing tasks, but there'll also be some posts where really the focus is just to get to know each other and use these in a social way. Now, the discussion board does have a password. So what I'll be doing is after the session, I'll email everyone with the link and the password to enter. And that's really just to keep your work safe, because if people do want to post snippets of work, or maybe share some of the goals they're setting, we appreciate that's not necessarily something you want kind of broadcast and made public. So just to keep this nice and safe and to make this space that really you guys can use as your own, this will be password protected. So straight after this session, I'll share the link through to that board as well as the password so you can access it. As you'll see, I've just posted a few things to get us started on the discussion boards. One is a little welcome introduce yourself tab. I've put a little bit in there about myself just to get the ball rolling, and you can click on the reply button and add a little bit about yourself, maybe the course that you're studying, what you're working on at the moment. And really, again, this is just to get that community of writing started off. I think writing a dissertation can sometimes feel quite lonely. So we really wanted to use this space as a social space and as an opportunity for you to kind of reach out, chat to others, get feedback, if indeed that's something that you'll find helpful. So I'll be sending the links onto those after this session and some instructions on how to access them just as a refresher. But for now, I think that's sort of all I wanted to show you, just to get you familiar with how we'll be using that online space as well as the discussion boards. So I'm just going to jump back to the slides now. There we go. And I'll hand over to Matt because I think you're going to talk about our upcoming sessions, aren't you?
Yes, just to get a little flavour of what we're going to be doing. Okay, so let me move this over. Fantastic. So our next session, which I believe is next Tuesday, is obviously called Get to Know Your Project. And what we're really going to be doing in this session is helping you to understand your research project a bit better. I, not so long ago, had a meeting with my supervisor because, as you'll find out when I introduce myself, I'm currently working on a master's degree of my own at the moment. And my supervisor sat down with me and I went to her with all these ideas. I need to do this thing and this thing and this thing. And she said, first of all, we're going to spend some time thinking about your research project. And I think this is sometimes something we overlook in the research process. Spending time getting to know your project. So what we're going to do in this session is thinking about what makes your research unique. Why should people care about your research project? How might it develop our understanding of theory or professional practice, depending on what your discipline is? And this is about getting you to know your research story, because a piece of research from beginning to end is a narrative. And it's an exciting story, and there are bits that you want to highlight, the bits you want to emphasize, and we're going to go through that, and we're going to have a go at some fun writing tasks, one of which will involve writing the Hollywood pitch for your research project. Following on from that, we've got a session, Let's Get Critical. So this is going to be about how do we develop that critical engagement that's required to succeed at level 7. How do we develop an argument? How do you develop confidence in your academic tone to show your position on a piece of literature? And this is going to be a very active session. We're going to have a go at analysing literature, producing critical responses, sharing those critical responses with others, seeing about how maybe we could develop those even further. Then we've got our HIT sessions. So continuing the kind of gym metaphor, HIT in our case stands for high intensity interval typing. And these are going to be the really active sessions where you're just going to get a lot of writing done. Like I said here, it's time to get writing. And we're going to use timed writing blocks. So you'll have set periods where you'll write, and then there'll be short breaks where we can share how we're doing. And this can often really help motivate progress. And at the end, take some time to think about how we've succeeded, how we've progressed. And I probably should say at the beginning of each session, we'll have a go at setting some goals for that kind of 90-minute period. Those will be very active sessions. And I think if you're ever really just struggling with a writing plateau, these are a really great way to just smash through those blocks to your writing. Writing with constraints can be a really powerful motivator. And hopefully a bit later in today's session, you'll get a little flavour of that. I also will say that our HIT sessions, we're going to be running a lot of these. We've got one on May 21st, but we've got lots more to be confirmed because it's likely we're going to be running at least one of these a week. Then on June the 16th, we've got to meet your methodology. I really wanted to put on this session because I feel that I've spoken to a lot of students that sometimes struggle to get to grips with their methodology. And as much as your whole dissertation and research project is telling a story, your methodology is a very specific part of that story, which is about showing how did you go from your research questions to the methods that enable you to answer those research questions. It's about mapping that journey. So we're going to have a look at how do you kind of highlight that journey and work out your position on research, because a big part of writing a really great methodology is working out your own positionality. What are your beliefs about the way that knowledge is constructed, the way we should gather knowledge, develop theories, and we'll go into some of those details. Again, this will be a very practical session. We're going to have a go at designing some research and thinking about how different theoretical perspectives might handle the same piece of research. And we'll have a go at reflecting on those choice of methods and what that actually looks like in your writing. Okay, I think now I'm going to hand back to Kirsty, who's going to take us through a little fun activity.
Okay, so if anyone has ever been to a real gym induction, this is the moment where they ask you to get on the treadmill and kind of walk for 5 minutes and sort of prove that you can use the equipment. So similarly, what we'd like to do with you today is a quick 5-minute writing activity, just to give you a flavour of some of the things that we'll be doing in later sessions. This is an activity called free writing. It's used quite often in things like writing retreats. I think Matt and I have both done this previously in different sessions. And the idea is really to empty your head. So don't worry in this next 5 minutes about editing and correcting yourself. Don't worry about your grammar, your language, your punctuation. This is just 5 minutes of creativity to get you into that writing flow and that writing space. So what we're going to ask you to do, I've got a timer set on my phone for 5 minutes. And what I'd like you to do is spend the next 5 minutes writing anything. It could be a short story. It could just be a series of sentences, a poem, whatever it is. But spend 5 minutes writing. That piece of writing, the only rule or constraint we'll place on you is that it has to include these 5 keywords. So that piece of writing has to include the word mechanical, attractive, brother, mountain, and hold. Okay, they're your only constraints. What I'd like you to do is, first of all, write for those full 5 minutes. Keep going. Don't edit or correct yourself, and you can write in any style. And of course, if you want to open a Microsoft Word tab or grab yourself a pen and paper, entirely up to you. But the important thing is to just keep going in those 5 minutes. See if you can incorporate those 5 keywords. So I'll give you a couple of moments just to open that new Word tab or grab yourself a piece of paper and a pen. I think Matt and I are going to do this as well. And I'm going to set my timer running for 5 minutes. And those 5 minutes of free writing start now. All right, and that is our 5 minutes up. That went quickly. I feel like that flew.
Timer, yeah.
I was struggling to get my last word in there.
I have a confession. I couldn't fit one of the words into my story.
I managed to get attractive in my last sentence. I've done about half a page.
I couldn't get brother in.
No, don't worry. We are not going to read what we've just written, and nor are we going to ask you guys to share what you've just written. Really, what we wanted to do in this session is just take 5 minutes to, as I say, give you a bit of a taste of some of the things that we might do in our sessions. Now, free writing is one great way to start off those hit sessions and start off a writing retreat. It just helps you get into that mindset of writing. And it might be that although you're not particularly happy with what you've written, you have got some words on the page in those last 5 minutes. And I know from experience, sitting sometimes for much more than 5 minutes staring at that blank page on Microsoft Word. So sometimes just doing something short and sweet like this and seeing that you can produce a little bit of writing, it's quite motivating. You know, we've all come up with something there in 5 minutes. So hopefully you came up with something that you're partially happy with and got a little bit of a taste of some of the activities that we might be doing in other sessions later on in the summer. Okay, Matt.
Yes, right. I'm going to have a little talk to you about goal setting. So this is a really important part of any kind of piece of writing that you're doing at level 7, and especially important if you're looking at dissertation research project. And I wanted to talk to you about why do we actually set goals? Because I think a lot of the time we're told you've got to set goals, you've got to have goals, but why? Why is that really important? And thinking about it specifically in relation to your academic work. Well, in the context of a dissertation, we want to beat the myth of writing up. And what we mean by this is it's often a phrase you'll hear, I'm now in the writing up phase of my dissertation. But that sort of implies there's this period where you're not doing any writing at all. But then what are you doing? You might be collecting data, but the thing is, if you're collecting data, for example, that means you know what your methodology is. So you could be already writing up that part of your project. And we kind of want to show that this is an ongoing process. There's always something you can be working on within your writing rather than thinking about it as this discrete period where you potentially end up burning yourself out because you spend a month trying to write these 15,000 words or however many words your project is. So we want to kind of help you use goals to break this process up. Setting goals helps to train you to write regularly. Honestly, a dissertation truly, it is a marathon, not a sprint. You know, I'm sure lots of us can remember times when we were undergraduates when maybe we mismanaged our time and there was an assignment that maybe we had to do in the 24 to 48 hours before the deadline. And sometimes you can get away with that when you're an undergraduate. Very occasionally, though, I wouldn't recommend it. But with a dissertation, you can't do that. Like I just said, you'll burn yourself out if you try and do this all in this compressed period. But by setting goals, it breaks it up. It means that you start this process of writing regularly, and you start to realize that actually, if you're writing 750, 1,000 words a week, you soon get to that target. And this abstract 15,000 words doesn't feel quite so big and quite so impossible. Goals also help to give you a sense of structure. I think especially important at the moment, but always important to have a sense of what you should be working towards and giving you a sense of what do you want to be working on? What do I need to prioritize? What can take a backseat? I think this is really important with your dissertation because at different times, there are things that require more and less focus depending on where you are in that dissertation journey. Another great thing about goals is it allows you to reflect on what you've achieved. By being able to say, I met these goals, you can realize how far you've already come. So when you've, say, got into a habit of writing 1,000 words a week, well, after a month, you can look back and say, well, I've written 4,000 words. I've written potentially over a quarter, maybe a third of my research project. And sort of related to this, it can help show your progress to your supervisor. It can be a good way of opening up a dialogue with your supervisor as well to kind of say, well, I've set these goals. This is what I want to achieve by this point. It's a good way of showing them that you've got a plan for what you're working on and how you're going to achieve those kind of particular things that you need to for your dissertation. So in terms of goal setting, one of the things we want to get you to do after the session, and I believe Kirsty's put this into the writing task that's on the discussion board.
Yes, I'm there.
Fantastic. We would like you to have a go at developing some goals. So we'd like you to have a go at developing 3 short-term goals. And these might not necessarily even be writing targets. These could be targets for reading, for example. But they're short-term because you can achieve them in the next 3 weeks. So roughly by the end of May. Want to have a medium-term goal? Something that's achievable by the end of June. Maybe that's to have collected all of your data or to have written a certain amount of words. And then a long-term goal, which is achievable by the end of July. Now, the only reason why I want to say July is because I didn't want to say the end of August and have lots of people say, finish my dissertation. I want it to be a bit more specific than that, something that you'd be able to look back on or look at and say, yep, achieve this, so you can then set new long-term goals. Because as I said, we're going to revisit goal setting a lot throughout the GYM program. So in a few weeks' time, we'll get you to set new short-term goals. Kind of constantly refreshing those goals keeps you pushing yourself, keeps you developing, keeps you motivated. We would like you to share these in the discussion board for feedback. And like it says, we're going to revisit these regularly. But if you don't want to share them in the discussion board, you don't have to. They can be personal to you. But if you'd like to share them, that would be great. And we'd love to have a discussion around those. I don't know if, Kirsty, there was anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, just to say as well, I know you mentioned earlier that goal setting can be really useful for those meetings with your supervisors, but equally, if you do want to take advantage of booking onto one of those one-to-one sessions with either Matt or myself to kind of talk about your dissertation or your writing, goals can be a great starting point there, especially as we know an awful lot about your project or about the content that you're working on. So actually, for us, talking to someone about their project for the very first time, it's kind of useful to hear your goals and where you want to be at, maybe some of the things that are causing you trouble in reaching that goal. And that's where we can really kind of help in those one-to-ones to help you find some strategies and some ways to make progress. So, you know, they can be useful for a whole lot of things, and they're not just there to make you feel bad. They're not there to make you feel like, oh, but I've got to do this. It's not the pressure. It's more spending the time to kind of articulate that goal, that aspiration of what you hope to achieve, and then you can use that in a whole range of different ways to help track that progress and keep you on task.
Mm-hmm.
So to that end, what we are going to do now is just kick off with a little bit of a conversation around goal setting. We're not going to ask you to make those goals right now. As Matt said, that will happen after this session. Instead, what we're going to do is put you in some small breakout groups of between 3 and 4 participants. And in those small groups, we're going to give you about 12 minutes just to have a think about the following 2 questions on this slide. So first of all, we'd like you to imagine that we've gone a few months into the future and you've completed your dissertation or whatever it is you're working on at the moment. Perhaps it's an assignment or a proposal. But I want you to imagine that you've completed that. Once that thing is done, if you're ready to click print and finish that document, what do you think it would achieve? What would that completed dissertation have done? What would it achieve? And what would make it a successful piece of work? So for you, looking back then at that assignment or that dissertation when it's completed, what would help you to know that it had been successful? How do you know you'd done your best? So that's the first thing that we'd like you to have a quick chat and a think about. Secondly, have a think about, are there any obstacles at the moment that feel like they're getting in the way of you completing that dissertation or assignment? So we'd also like you to have a bit of a chat about that, because actually it could well be that when you start chatting with others about this, a lot of people have similar obstacles or similar challenges facing them at the moment. Now, logistically, what's going to happen now is I'm going to start something called breakout groups, and that's going to pop everyone into a small group with either 2 or 3 other participants. It is entirely up to you in those small groups whether you use your video and audio to have a bit of a conversation, maybe introduce yourselves and talk about these questions. Alternatively, if you would rather just use the chat, that is absolutely fine, whatever you're kind of comfortable and confident with using this software. Okay, I will share the slide with all the groups, so you'll have these for reference. And I'll set a quick timer as well. I mean, we're at about, 47 minutes past actually. So at 4 o'clock, what I'll do is bring everyone back into the main room to tie up those conversations and for us to finish off the session, okay? So I'm going to start that now, and you will find yourself swept into a new room where you can meet some new participants and have a conversation about these questions.
Unfortunately,
right.
the return to the main room can be a bit...
It is always brutal, isn't it?
It is. Even when you know it's coming, being pulled back into the main room, it always feels like a bit like whiplash, but...
It does a little bit. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
If you were mid-flow, anyone in your conversations. So how did that go? Do you just want to pop over to the chat window? Just let us know. Is there anything that worked particularly well? Anything that you talked about in your groups that you want to share? How was that experience for everyone? Didn't see the slide. Okay, that should have been sharing, so it's useful to know that that wasn't happening. Thanks for that, Emily. I'm going to make a note to chase that up because Blackboard told me it was sharing. Oh, sorry, Francis, getting interrupted at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, a couple of people saying it's nice to know that others are in the same boat there from Claire. And just an opportunity, yeah, great to chat with others. Good to know that you're not alone in your anxiety. Yeah, definitely. I think this is it. I think even in the best of times, from writing, master's dissertations, I mean, especially from doing my own PhD, it can be such a lonely experience sometimes. And I think any opportunities we can find to join this community, to talk to each other, encourage each other, I think is a good thing, and we'll be in the same boat with you. We're working on projects, writing up. Matt's got his own dissertation to be working on. So we are all...
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're going to hear me saying a lot, do as I say, not as I do, because when I was talking through that goal setting, I was thinking I need to I need to take a bit of this advice myself and set some short-term goals to stop getting lost in the big picture.
Yeah. But yeah, some of the comments there are really great. You know, Joe saying that it's good to know that we're all sharing the same worries and that we're not on our own. Emily, it's motivating in itself to kind of be doing this session, just to having a point where you can touch base really and think about writing. And as we mentioned earlier, if you want to use this space, if you want to kind of meet back up with that group or just join at a time and chat to others and use this writing gym however you want to, you know, you're more than welcome to join this space, and it is only yours. You know, only you will have the link to it. So it's free for you guys to use this as a social space, you know, to make suggestions and to work together. So we really kind of encourage that, yeah. But thank you for using the chat to feedback. That's actually really, really useful to know that people are finding this helpful, and also some great kind of feedback in terms of logistically me making sure that slide shares next time. So thank you for that. I think I'll hand over to Matt now to kind of draw everything together, yeah?
Yep, fantastic. So really, kind of final slide, and I just want to talk about the next steps for you guys. So in the discussion board, as Kirsty said, you're going to receive an email with how you can access that discussion board with the password, everything like that. Then complete the 2 writing tasks if you want to, that is. But to include some goal setting, introduce yourself. A couple of you in one of the break, I hope to get to meet all of you as we go through this process, but it'd be great if you could post a few words about yourself. I'm going to do mine probably a bit later today or tomorrow morning to say a few words about yourself, because like you guys have pointed out in the chat, it's nice to talk to others, share some worries, understand that other people are going through the same thing. I'm going to say this a lot, but we are a community of writers. We are a community here. So there's kind of that important other aspect to it as well. We can help motivate, encourage each other's progress. Get yourself booked into the upcoming sessions. As we said, there's no limit kind of on these sessions, but if there's something that you think would be of interest, get yourself booked on. And like I said, we're going to add some more hit sessions in, so there's at least 1 a week of those. And I think so next week, I think we've got the getting to know your research project, and we've got a hit session on Thursday. And you're more than welcome to come to everything, one of them, none of them, whatever. And really the thing I really want to say is just, if you've got any questions, get in touch with one of us, both of us, and we'll get back to you. You know, this is something, a project we're really passionate about, and we want to help you guys in whatever way we can. And do make use of the discussion board. I really want to say that I think that's a great way for us to kind of keep in contact with one another. And we can kind of use that space to kind of create some dialogue about research. We might post some interesting articles on there, all sorts of stuff. Responding to Greg's question, I'm going to ask Kirsty. I think our emails are on the website.
But I knew that was coming back to me.
Yeah. You're the techie one.
Yeah, true. No. What I'll do, Greg, is I'll make sure that our front page of Libguide, I'll also make sure it's in the bottom of the email you get after the session as well. So you've just got a couple of points that you'll be able to find it from. But they'll just be our personal emails, our work emails. But by all means, copy us both in and email us both. We're more than happy to answer any questions or come back to you with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And otherwise, I would say that kind of brings this session to a close. If anyone has got any other questions, you're welcome to kind of ask us once the session is ended. We're going to stick around for 10-15 minutes to answer any questions that you might have. But otherwise, we hope to see you in the writing gym soon, and I look forward to reading your responses on the discussion board.